Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is the John Thomas Hill Show. Again, not really going to talk a whole lot of stuff on a particular topic today, just kind of giving a general weekend update about what's going on and such. Yesterday I had orientation at my new job, which I will be a medical screener at through Milestone. I work at a company called Milestone, and I will be working at the Facebook facility in Forest City, North Carolina. And it's going to be pretty sweet. Basically, all I'll be doing is when somebody comes in, one of the employees comes in, I'll be asking them some questions about whether or not they actually been around anybody that's got COVID or have any symptoms of COVID, and taking their temperature. Pretty simple stuff that, given the mood of whoever's coming in and such, it could be tricky. The reason I say that is I've worked industrial security before. Not everybody wants to be cooperative. And you have to be careful about how you put your authority down. Although I won't really have any authority here, the security guard will. Which is why I'm going to be trying to get in good with the security guards, just to make sure they understand that I'm there to help them out and to back them up if necessary. So just to kind of, my job is basically to stay out of their way and just let them do their job, and I'll do my job and all that, and just basically make sure the facility is safe and all of that, because you don't want anybody going in that actually has a fever or anything like that, or any known symptoms or anything like that. So yeah, it's kind of tricky. The reason it's not really that complicated for me was about 2 or 3 weeks before I got let go from West Rock, which is where I used to work, the West Rock facility in Forest City. They were doing the same kind of screenings, with supervisors doing it. So I'm familiar with the procedures that they're doing. And it's not really anything really shocking that, is necessarily, there are some things I can't discuss, like what goes on at Facebook, the facility there. I can't go into that, but I did have a little brief tour of it. It's kind of neat. It's mostly servers and such, this is not anything really shocking. If you are local, you kind of know what they do anyway to begin with, so I'm not giving anything away that's really shocking. So, but it's kind of neat, little job. It'll last for a while, I know, because this thing doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. And the way they've been talking, Facebook is wanting to keep this around for a good long while. That doesn't necessarily mean it'll stay around, because you never know. But I'm kind of thinking that maybe I can get on with security force there, because they do get paid really well, by the way. Let's talk about what's going on in the world of sports. Yesterday we had some incidents where some Major League Baseball players were found to have COVID, and some other things were cropping up. This is kind of the fear that all this, getting back going to where we were before all this struck, the restarting and such. This is the fear that a lot of these businesses have. Baseball right now, the owners and the players are still negotiating. I think I can understand why the owners don't want to have a really long season. They just want to get the season over with and get the postseason over with, so they can get the contractually obligated money from Fox and TBS in and all of that, which I can understand. I think what it's going to come down to is the players are going to get paid more than the games that they would normally have played. I think that's what they're edging for. Is that they're the ones taking the bigger risk in their eyes, and I can understand that, because when you're out there playing baseball or playing any sport, baseball's probably more safer than the other sports, because there's not as much contact in baseball as there is in football, obviously, basketball, especially hockey. So you can kind of get a sense of that baseball is a bit safer, but at the same time, there is no such thing as complete safety. You know, you're going to have to, at first base, the runner on first is going to have to stand by the first baseman more than likely. I don't see them changing that strategy. And it's one of those crazy things about this whole thing is it's bringing up a lot of topics that beforehand really were on the back burner, like universal designated hitter, which is basically means they're trying to bring the designated hitter in the National League. I have been on the fence about this. I don't necessarily am against it, but to me, I've always felt like that meant the National League was separate from the American League, and now all of a sudden you're going to bring it in. I mean, interleague play was one thing 23 years ago now, when they started that up. That was a real game changer. Obviously, the wild card thing was a game changer before that, about a quarter of a century ago now. Now you're changing it to where it's the National League is going to become basically the American League, where you're not going to have pitcher bat at all. And on the surface, I don't really have a problem with it. I think it does change the game strategy a lot, and the National League takes away the differentiation between the two leagues. I think that maybe the time is right for that to happen. I really think that when it all comes down to it, there is a need to have this happen because, truth be told, there isn't really much else you can do with baseball right now that's going to fundamentally change the game. I've heard different things about how they're going to change extra innings and all that. I don't really think that'll ever change unless it gets really deep into extra innings, like maybe the 13th or 14th inning that they may decide to do that with the runner on first or runner on second or runner on second and first, whatever have you, to kind of end the game quicker or make it harder to keep the game going. You know, there is no easy way to change it. I mean, there are ideas out there, but I don't really know if any of them will really fly. So I'll leave it at that. My thoughts in pertaining to getting started back up with the NBA and NHL. I like the idea of the core cities, especially in the NHL, where you have the teams are basically going to play a short tournament. The team, I can't remember exactly. I think only basically they're going to expand the playoffs to, I think, 24 teams. The top 8 seeds and the top 4 in each conference will automatically be in, and the bottom 4 will have to face off against the 4 that didn't quite make it to get in, which I like the idea of, and essentially. And the top 4 seeds will play their little round robin to kind of get them fresh and have a little bit of seeding, which doesn't really matter in the NHL playoffs because you could get a hot goalie. So this is going to be a very interesting. It could be conceivable that the 12th ranked team in a conference with a losing record who didn't expect to go anywhere could wind up winning the Stanley Cup. Now the NBA's probably played it a little smarter in the fact they've cut it down to 22 teams that were realistically had a shot at the playoffs. They're bringing to Orlando. They're going to play 8 regular season games, and then they'll start the playoffs. Personally, I think they should just have, declare the season done, and then have this be like the second phase of the playoffs, and then move on from there. I mean, there was no easy way to do it. Personally, if I were the NBA, I would have done like the NHL would have done. 24 teams, yeah, you would have had teams that didn't deserve to get in the playoffs get there, but it would have basically meant that you would have had a format that would have worked You would have had possibly a shocking upset or two along the way, maybe deep into the playoffs, a true Cinderella and all that. But I think the key here is just getting the seasons over with and then get on to, the next season and trying to figure this stuff out. And you've heard this term until you're sick of it, unprecedented times. By this time we would be done with, or on the verge of being done with the Stanley Cup with the Stanley Cup final, and the NBA playoffs would be about ready to be done, and we'd be full into Major League Baseball. We'd be getting ready for the Olympics and all of this, and we would have had the first, or I should say the third major, because they've changed it around. The PGA tournament's in May now instead of in August, which I kind of feel like is a bit silly in my opinion, but, what do I know? Here's my thought about how you make sports better in this very difficult time. You don't can fan noises, crowd noises, whatever you want to call it, into the stadiums. You don't do anything gimmicky except mic the coaches, mic the players, and maybe, just maybe, put cameras on the quarterbacks, the middle linebackers, the wide receivers, the defensive backs, the referee, the umpire, some of the officials, and give you some unique camera angles and unique sounds to the game. Obviously, you want to make sure you have it on 7-second delay to where you can bleep out the bad words. But that just means that you could go back, say like on Showtime's, it used to be on HBO, now it's on Showtime, Inside the NFL, where they can allow for more adult language, to where you can kind of listen to it unfiltered. That'd be a good name for a show, Unfiltered. So NFL Unfiltered. That would be kind of a unique show, to where you could hear where they really are talking, because it's not PG rated, folks, in the NFL, Same goes for the NBA, NHL, and all that, to kind of have that as a unique feature to get people to get involved in the games. Maybe even have it to where you could theoretically listen into that feed to where you wouldn't have any bleeps at all. But, that is kind of walking the line a little bit. The movie theaters I think are starting to get ready to get open again. I think if Phase 3 comes to pass this coming week in North Carolina, I believe the movie theaters will be allowed to open. Let's face it, the biggest problem through all this thing is the fact that nobody was ready for this. Truth be told, nobody could have been ready for something like this. And all the debate about should we reopen bars, should we not reopen bars, should we reopen gyms, should we not reopen gyms, and all of this, it's been kind of crazy. And there's not been any one person, one leader. This could have been the president. He chose not to do it. You can go from there, make of it what you will. But we've not had that one person that's come along and that we've been able to, or persons come along that we've been able to listen and to kind of go, okay, they know what they're talking about, let's follow their lead. And that's been the biggest problem through all of this, is the fact that, oh, by the way, the NHL playoffs, they just broke. NHL playoffs will start on July 30th. Qualifying rounds will begin following a 2-week training camp and one exhibition game. So, breaking news. Breaking news! So, yeah, I think that movie theaters will have to change after this. People are used to being at home watching movies. If I owned a movie theater, how would I change it? First of all, if I had the money, I'd buy this retro cinema theater that's up here in Rutherford County, North Carolina, Forest City, that, quite frankly, ain't worth anything. because it's outdated, it's old. Even though he's put some money into it to upgrade things, it's not as good as going to a modern theater in Shelby and such. What I would do if I had a facility like that would be bring back classic movies, upgrade everything as best I could, upgrade the dining experience, don't make it a kiddie place unless, make it to where I would even basically expand it, because the whole area, that we call it the Tri-City Mall around here, needs a major revamping. The parking lot needs to be paved. There's so much that needs to be done. The guy that owns it now is a piece of garbage, in my opinion. And I can go on about this guy. I will not name him for legal reasons, but everybody locally knows who he is. And I think most people would agree that the mall needs a major revamp. But the movie theater really needs a major revamp. And movie theaters in general are going to have to struggle with this. Basically, if I owned a movie theater, I would bring in the new releases, but also try to bring in, if I could, classic movies to show and have an atmosphere where, you got a lot of senior citizens in this area. They're not necessarily wanting to be around other people, especially younger folks right now. If I owned that retro cinema, I would open up early and bring in and have a matinee showing, say, from like 1 or 2 or something like that, and have a double-header movie of classic movies to where some of the older folks can go in and enjoy it and watch something interesting that isn't necessarily modern and such. Now, what those movies are, I haven't a clue, because I'm not sure how you can go about getting those classic movies, especially considering this is a locally owned place that's small run. We could have had an 8-movie theater here in downtown Forest City, but certain people, aka the guy that owns the Retro Cinema, did not let that happen. But I digress, and I'm still bugged about that. But let's talk about movie theaters in general. You have to improve the experience. First of all, you have to make the food part of the experience. I would dare say, if I owned a place, I would create something to where people can actually sit and dine and watch a movie. That's me. Have luxurious seating. Have it to where you're comfortable sitting there and watching the theaters. Not so comfortable that you got people making out, which is always a risk. Of course, right now during this pandemic, I don't think I have to worry about that too much. But then again, secondly, you have to be more flexible. There's no easy way to say it. The movie theater concept, right as it was before, is outdated. People can watch stuff in their homes on just as good, if not better quality televisions, with just as good, if not better quality sound, and not have to get out in public and worry about people talking through a film and all of that. That is what you're dealing with in this era, and you're having to fight against that. So now you've got to find a way to make the experience better for your customers, to where they're wanting it to come out, to go to your theater and watch a movie. That's the whole key right there, is getting people to watch your movie. And that's not easy, folks. That is not easy whatsoever, especially when you have all the competition going on. The big winner in all of this are streaming services. Boy, did HBO Max launch at a good time, except for the part that they didn't get on Roku and Fire TV. Yeah. Not the smartest move on HBO Max's part to not be on Roku and Fire TV. You're starting up a service. Yes, HBO is backed up by AT&T, and they got a lot of money, and they can have a little say-so in all of this, but Roku is by far the #1 streaming service. Fire TV is arguably number 2. streaming device, I should say. Fire TV is number 2. How in the world are you not on the top 2 streaming device services out of the gate is beyond me. Now, they're not going to hurt. They're going to get better in time. They're going to eventually get on Roku and Fire TV. Yeah, there is a workaround. You can take your mobile device, cast it to Chromecast, and you can watch it on your big screen that way. That you can do, which I have done because I bought a Chromecast to do just that. Now, and there are other ways you could probably do it too. I've heard there are ways you can do it on Roku and Firecast, but it's not going to be as good of quality, and there's always a risk of it being taken off. Especially if Roku, they could take off that app, and you would be out of luck. Yeah, I'll be here in a minute. I'll do another broadcast here soon. Bye.